Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to my review of Bloodborne. Just to let you guys know, this is my second time doing this video because I did it the first time. It was this long, elaborate review with all these points and different footages and stuff like that. But somehow my file got messed up. It got corrupted apparently. So it's no good. I can't even watch it and I couldn't even edit it again anymore. So I had to start all over again from scratch. So basically that's the reason why this review is taking so long to come out. But here it is, so yeah, let's get to it. I'm just gonna keep it simple this time though. I'm gonna try to keep this video a little shorter than my last one was like 17 minutes long. But anyways, straight to the point, this game is awesome. I hesitated on buying it at first because I wasn't sure if I was up for the challenge. You know, creator of Dark Souls and super difficult and raging and all that stuff. Plus I haven't really been into RPG since I was a kid. You know, I've never played anything that was made by From Software before, so there was a lot of things kind of holding me back. But I gotta say, the hype got me. You know, this game looked appealing from the trailers and you know, all that stuff. And to put it bluntly, I would say it delivered on the hype. So starting off, I guess I'll talk about the graphics. Graphically, I felt the game had a few very minor and subtle flaws, but you know, I'm sort of conflicted about it because I still found the game to be very appealing visually. Pretty much the things that bothered me were the aliasing and the textures. Now, the textures were fine for the most part during regular play, but at any point if you were to like zoom in on a surface or focus in on a surface up close, the textures got pretty muddied up. It's not really something worth complaining about because, you know, it's not like the entire game looks blotchy or anything like that. It's just when you went super close to a surface. I mean, every game gets a little blotchier the closer you get, but I just found Bloodborne was particularly bad as far as the PS4 games that I've played. I have heard several people also complain about frame rate issues, but honestly, they were extremely few and far between for me because I mean, in my whole time playing, I only noticed maybe a frame stutter maybe 2 or 3 times, to be honest. Except in this one spot in Old Yharnam where it happened 100% of the time. And, I mean, I wish I could show you guys the part I'm talking about, but I lent my game out to a friend, so I couldn't capture the footage. But, yeah, there's this one spot in Old Yharnam where you're going over this little bridge, and every single time, the frames would drop at that spot. Seriously, though? Nothing to fret over. It was a minor thing. There was no enemies around or anything like that. It was really no big deal. Another thing that was bothering me quite a bit at first was the aliasing, although I eventually got used to it. But I will say that out of the let's say 24 or so PS4 games that I've played, Bloodborne probably has the worst aliasing, but I really only noticed it when I played on my big TV, which is 60 inches. But there seemed to be an abundance of it, and I mean, I don't want to sound like a fanboy or anything like that, or like I'm hating on Xbox, but it reminded me of an Xbox One game in this respect. At least some of the ones that I've played, like Sunset Overdrive for example, which I remember when I played that game, I was bothered by the aliasing. And when I played that, it was only on like maybe a 38 or 40 inch screen, and the aliasing was bothering me. I asked a few other people if they were having issues with the aliasing, and no one else seemed to have a problem with it, so I think it's just one of those things that my eyes, for some reason, are attracted to, you know, especially when I'm specifically looking for visual flaws. I'm very picky like that, I guess, so, I mean, maybe it's just me, I don't know, it wasn't a big deal. It's just one of those things that you really have to be looking for in order for it to be an issue, and, you know, when I played this game on my smaller monitor, this 27 inches, I didn't see any aliasing at all. So, you know, it's just one of those things. But anyways, the game still looks amazing despite these few, you know, minor visual flaws. And, you know, I grew up on morbid shit, so this game really appealed to me in a visual sense. It's very dark and gruesome and gory, and overall had this very gothic theme going on. And there were just many, many times where I just wanted to like stop, remove the HUD, snap a screenshot of the scenery, because the game just looked badass. So anyways, let's talk about the gameplay. And yet again, this game impressed me. It may look like a button masher, and I admit, sometimes I was guilty of treating it like a button masher, but for real, you have to use some tactical combat strategies to win these fights. Defense is just as important as offense, timing is everything, and even your weapon choice plays a huge role in your tactics. There's a bunch of weapons to choose from. Each weapon has 2 forms, which each have their own attacks and their own ranges, and they require different timing for your attacks and all that stuff. Then you have your secondary weapons, which are basically used for stunning enemies, which opens up more attack possibilities. You can actually have up to 4 weapons equipped at once. You get 2 in your left hand and 2 in your right hand, and you can basically toggle between them seamlessly and instantly with a simple button press. So all of this just adds so much variety to the gameplay, and it's really up to the player on how much they want to switch things up to keep things feeling fresh. So personally for myself, I got really comfortable with the axe, so that was my main weapon throughout the entire game. I did experiment with several other weapons, but I just kept gravitating back to the axe regardless. It was just what I was most comfortable with. That's how I was winning the most battles, so that's what I stuck with. Even when you master a certain weapon, it's not exactly easy to kill enemies because each enemy requires different tactics to beat, and you encounter many different types of enemies throughout the game. So, some enemies you can just slash a few times. Some of them it's better to stun them first, and then you do a visceral attack, which is pretty much your most powerful attack. And some enemies require you to stick and move, that type of strategy. And then you have these enemies where it's better to get in close with fast, short-range attacks. And then there's ones where it's best to keep your distance and be offensive with these slower but long-range attacks. The game just really switches things up. It makes you switch things up in that respect. And it kept it feeling fresh throughout the entire playtime. Talk a little about the sound now. The sound effects in the game and the music, they were great. I mean, they were atmospheric, but they really weren't too impressive. Nothing that stood out as something that was like better than any other game. Most games these days have pretty solid soundtracks these days. But I think it's worth noting that the developers did put together a big orchestra. I think it's like a 65-piece orchestra, as well as a 32-piece choir for the soundtrack of this game. And it really does add to the overall atmosphere of the game. I wouldn't say it's scary like PT or what was that other one? Outlast. But there are some pretty creepy sounds like, shuffling feet or these slimy slithering noises, and screams and howls of some of these giant bosses can be pretty damn terrifying. Overall though, I thought the game had an excellent and immersive soundtrack. As for those bosses, this game, hands down, has some of the best boss battles in any game that I've ever played. Not only are they incredibly difficult, but they're super intense, and they require a respectable degree of skill. Each boss had an assortment of attacks, and most of them are pretty difficult to read and predict what they're going to do next, and their attacks come fast and vicious, and some of them even have one-hit kill moves that are, almost impossible to evade. Some of these bosses just had me stuck for days, and I had to try different strategies, and sometimes I had to go farm XP to level up my guy just to be able to beat these guys. And I'm not gonna lie, I raged a lot at this game, but the satisfaction of beating these bosses was the most rewarding feeling that I've had from a video game possibly ever. Because this game is so difficult, the sense of accomplishment after beating a boss or opening a shortcut is extremely rewarding, and it makes all of the grinding and struggling worthwhile, because most games you beat a level and you're just like, okay, whatever, on to the next one. But in Bloodborne, you're like, yes, fuck yeah, I finally slayed that motherfucker, yeah, right? It feels really good. It's just kind of an unexplainable feeling. You just have to kind of experience it for yourself. So, I guess I'm going to finish this off by talking a bit about the story in the game. Honestly, I don't think not many people, including myself, really know what's even going on as far as the story goes. All you really know is that you're a hunter who's trying to figure out what happened in the town of Yharnam, where apparently some sickness got into the bloodstream and started turning people into animals and bloodthirsty monsters. There are several hints throughout the game that are kind of linked to a pregnant woman and her baby, but it's really hard to tell whether or not the entire game is taking place in a dream or some sort of nightmare. Personally, if I had to describe it, I would say the game feels a lot like playing through a nightmare, because nothing really makes a lot of sense, yet it all still kind of seems to fit together, which in a way is pretty genius in my opinion, because it kind of keeps everything bundled with a certain theme, but it lets the player themselves sort of come to their own conclusion as to what's really going on. Now, I mean, I'm not even sure if the actual true plot behind the game has been revealed. All I know is certain people I've talked to have had different opinions and thoughts regarding the story of the game. So all in all, I really don't have anything bad to say about this game. I love playing it, and I loved it even more playing it through the second time. The game basically has an endless amount of replay value because there's co-op play and procedurally generated dungeons. It's really no surprise to me right now that Bloodborne is the highest rated game of this generation, which is currently tied with The Witcher 3, which again is getting great reviews. So for it to be in the same league as The Witcher 3 as far as quality goes, that is saying a lot for this game. So, I mean, I would say Bloodborne has probably become one of my top 10 games of all time, and seriously, I know that's a bold statement, but seriously, it's that good. For me anyways. Obviously everybody's gonna have a different opinion, but I think it's because I'm into all this dark, morbid shit, and just the overall sense of accomplishment that this game gave me was something that 99% of other games seriously lack. I would probably say that, you know, this has been my favorite game of the PS4 generation so far. I would say compared to my previous favorite games from the PS3 generation, Last of Us and God of War 3, I would say that Bloodborne gave me a better experience than both of those games, which is a tall order. Like, I know The Last of Us is highly revered in the industry, God of War 3 is also highly revered. God of War 3 is probably my favorite game of the PS3 era. I liked Bloodborne better than that. So that's saying a lot, but for me, my final score, I mean, I really can't give this game anything less than a 10. I think it deserves it. I think anything less than that would be an injustice. There's really no flaws in this game. It was nearly perfect. There's a couple small visual hiccups, but really, like, is that gonna deter you? Should that lower my score to like a 9.5? I really don't think so, because all in all, the game still looks beautiful. The game still presents itself very well. It's still very appealing to the eye. So I gotta give it a 10. So I hope you guys like this review. That's gonna be it. I've been getting a lot of awesome support and feedback on my channel lately from you guys, and I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate it. So please keep it coming. That's gonna be it for this video, guys. I'm glad you guys came to watch it. I mean, people have been requesting this review for a while, so I'm finally glad I got to do it again and finally get it out to you guys. I'm Vile Self. That's it for now. Until next time, villains. Thanks for watching. Later.